Okay, so to start off, I would like to ask about Project Arcadia, and I know that Times of Change or A Time of Changes is coming out pretty soon. So I was just wondering, how did your involvement start with Project Arcadia, and what can we expect from the new album?
Oh, well, the involvement started by them contacting me through my forum, actually, and that was funny thing is they'd contacted me 2 years before, but at that time I was just busy doing something else, and then they contacted me again because they were just sitting around. They couldn't actually make the album the way they wanted to do it with the singer they had at the time. And so at this time, all of a sudden it worked out because in my case too, I've been moving from Europe to the U.S. and everything's been up in the air and there's been lots of complications and everything else that I was supposed to be doing just couldn't happen. I mean, you move from one place to the other and everything is just wrong. You start a record and then all of a sudden you have like construction right next door. And even, the soundproofing I'd done wouldn't work at all. It's just like couldn't record. So moved again and the same thing happened. It's like, this is, I'm being cursed here. And on top of that, lots of things like that. And all of a sudden it just fell into place and they asked me the right time. I started getting everything back together and had things set up and no construction, no anything. I could start recording and they asked me if I was interested in doing it. And the material was good enough. And it was, I can, when I heard it, I could hear that there's room for me in here. I mean, I can actually contribute with something. It'll work for my voice. And so, yeah, I said, yeah, sure, let's do it. Let's go for it. And that's how it came about. And the album, what you can expect is, if you're familiar with what I've done before, there'll be a little bit of that. But there's, I will say that this album has a bit more width to it. It actually goes from, it's got a few more hard rock elements in there. There's a lot more. It's a more varied album. Lots of softer passages and lots of stuff that you're more, familiar with hearing me sing too. So there'll be a bit of both there. So,
yeah.
So that's what you
Sounds
can expect.
Pretty exciting.
Well, it is. In fact, this is my favorite performance ever so far. So.
Ooh, definitely be looking forward to that. Yeah. And then I know you recently did some shows with Trail of Murder as well, right?
Yeah, that's really why I'm here in Sweden right now. Either that or seeing my family. That could be the other reason. But yeah, no, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those shows. And so, that's fun.
Yeah.
And we're looking forward to doing more stuff. And I'm actually looking into booking a tour for the guys right now. But we'll see what happens. There's all kinds of all kinds of things that needs to be financed for that to work out. And I have to look at that first.
Yeah. And I had read that you that Trail of Murder was looking at doing a new album as well. Is that still currently being written, or is that going to happen maybe a little bit down the line, or how's that going to go?
It's currently being written, but it'll take a little bit longer because I'll be busy doing the Sirius Black album too. So, well, as soon as I fly back to the U.S., which is going to be on the 28th. So if you really want to go meet me, you can meet me at the airport in Atlanta on the 29th. No, it should still be the 28th because we're flying with the sun. So yeah. So don't do that because it's boring. I'm tired and it's the airport. Who cares? So
yeah.
Anyway, so as soon as I get back, I'll take a few days to sort of acclimatize myself and get sorted out with the time changes and everything, and then I'm gonna start recording the Sirius Black album, and I'll be busy doing that all the way up till to mid of October. I think that's where I have to have the vocal tracks all finished and ready. And once that's done, I mean, then I'm probably going to head back here and do that tour I'm looking at making right now. So we'll see. And so, yeah, there's going to be a Trail of Murder album. The question is when, because, I fly back here to do a tour with Trail of Murder before. That would be like November, I guess, in October. Yeah. So sometime in November, December. And I'm probably just going to stay in Europe because we're heading out with Sirius Black to open up for Hammerfall in January and February. So it's a quite a hectic time for me here right now. I'll be busy all the way up then, and as soon as that tour is over, then there's space for other things, so we'll see. Of course, I also don't know what else we've got lined up for Sirius Black. It could be more. Who knows, with that album, because the album will also be released very fast. It'll be released in time for the tour to head out, so we have it ready. So there's that.
Cool. And so Sirius Black and Trail of Murder are your two touring bands at the moment, right?
Yeah. I'll be trying to take Project Arcadia out too. but we'll see what happens, because as it just turns out that these are the things that happen right now, and as soon as I have a chance, I'll take Project Arcadia out on the road too, because they're a great bunch of people, and we did play a little bit in Bulgaria, and it was a lot of fun, and we're pretty good live too. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah. All right. So going backwards a little bit, one thing I'm kind of curious about, since I had read that Tad Morose was your first kind of official band, so I was wondering, how did you get started in music, going back quite a bit? Was it, did you just sing all the time from like when you were really young and then start looking for bands at a certain point, or was it something that you didn't think you were going to do, or how did that go?
Oh, we're looking at the very beginning here then. So
yeah,
it was really, I was kind of young, and I met some friends, for the first time. I had one friend that introduced me to a bunch of other of his friends, and so we hit it off, and we found out that we were both interested in the same kind of music, and we also found out that we were both probably even more interested in making our own music than listening to music. So, through our mutual friend, that's how I got acquainted to this guy, and we started playing around, and we kept writing music, mainly just the way it goes. It doesn't sound too good, but it's fun to do, and well, at the time you think it's just pretty good, but you realize 10 years later that was not so good, was it? But it was fun, and fond memories and all that. Still friends with these people, and we're actually thinking about doing something for fun, putting together a bit of a concept album, but we're gonna have to do that when there's time. But so that's how I started, and I really didn't want to sing. I wanted to be a bass player. So, but the thing was that when it came time to actually form the band, I spoke up too late.
Yeah.
And at this point, I think I was 13, maybe 14, and at that time, you don't really feel. I mean, most people do not feel very comfortable with their own voice, and you go rather hide behind an instrument. This is the thing that makes the noise, When it's your voice, it's really you. It's very personal. I mean, this is really how I sound, and also on top of that, you're 13, 14 at the time, and I'm going like I wanted to sound like Bruce Dickinson. You can't really do that when you're 13 or 14. You sound pathetic. So you're going like,
yeah,
I can't do this. It was tough. I didn't really want to do it. In retrospect, I'm very happy that I spoke up that late, because, I mean, in many respects, it's the best position in a band. You get all the attention that you want or need. You even get more than you want and need. And, I mean, whatever you do will make an impact. I mean, the little contributions that you do to an album, they'll make it or break it. So it's two-edged sword. I mean, you have to worry about it. It gets stressful, because you know that if my performance sucks, it doesn't matter if the others play really great, because nobody's going to stand listening to it. So there is that. But on the other hand, if you do a good job, you get to reap the rewards. People will tell you, great job on that one. Not everybody will tell the guitar player, hey, you play that riff really well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
They don't get to hear that so often. So in that respect, I'm very happy with being the singer.
Yeah. So many listeners, the singer is really on top of the music, so the vocals really do have to be strong.
Yeah.
But yeah, so since you did start singing kind of reluctantly, how did you go about developing your singing early on? Did you experience vocal pain at first maybe, and then you're like, oh, I got to change something? Or how did you go about kind of deciding, okay, I'm going to sing this way, and then you developed your own distinct style?
Well, obviously, like everybody else, I tried copying my favorite singers to varying degrees of success. Some worked out, some didn't work out so well, and that was interesting. So, I mean, like I said, early influence, Bruce Dickinson. I really wanted to sound like Bruce Dickinson. Great choice, got a great voice. So I don't blame myself. And later on, it was like people like Jeff Tate and even Midnight from Crimson Glory, stuff like that. So then you started doing other things, and that's when you realize that, okay, I can do these things, but it comes at a price. It's called fatigue.
Oh, yeah.
and you have to learn when to stop. But what happened, like vocal pain, I hardly ever had that, but I did wear myself out. And I did make a few mistakes where I, hurt myself. I mean, that's part of the if you're actually just doing from listening and trying to imitate, that's what's going to happen because you're not really sure what's going on. And as time went on, eventually I did go to study, proper classical style music, which is kind of different. I mean, I say proper classical. It's stupid to call it that because it's not really proper or anything. It's just like it's one school of singing, and it's actually very artificial. It's got a few things like everything that you have to have when you're talking about singing. You have to have it. There are a few basics, because of the mechanics of your body that will be common to no matter what you're doing. It's going to be the same. You have your breathing. I mean, you have all that stuff. You need to learn how to relax. You need to learn this. You need to know what you're doing. And unless you're doing it right, like some people just do it by pure instinct and they get it right from the very beginning. that would be great. On the other hand, you make mistakes, you learn things, and you pick up neat little tricks. And on occasion, I've actually had this happen on tour. You injure yourself. And since you're not, the main act, you can't cancel, because if you cancel, you will never get a job again. So you have to pull through, even though you have to push through and just, go through the tour and sing with your injured vocal folds, and you go like, shit. Certain notes will just come out, and that's all you hear. That's like it. Every other note can work out just fine, but, certain frequencies will just go bomb out on you, and you go like, shit, I can't do this. But you have to do it. And then throughout a tour like that, you learn how to sing that note in a different way. That will eliminate the part because you have to find a way to shift it. And that's a neat trick that you can do. And then, if you're lucky enough, like I was, I did not get any permanent nodes on my vocal folds. There's nothing like that. So I was lucky. They healed up right. It's basically just blisters, and you can, sort of like get them to where you have malformed vocal folds and you have bumps on them. But the blisters can go away as well, and that's fine. And that's what happened to me. So I was lucky. So anyway, what I did gain from that experience was that I found another way to sing certain notes, and therefore I can actually sing that same note in yet another way, but it sounds slightly different. Still works just fine. And sometimes that's the better way to sing it. So I can express myself in yet another way. So sometimes an accident is a good thing. Other times not. So anyway, I'm going to go back in time a little bit because I realized I skipped a great number of years here from, the very first start. I'm figuring that you probably also want to know, when I actually got in a band and how that came about. The interesting thing here is I started out doing this with my friends, and we formed a little band. But after that, I was just basically writing for myself, for my own pleasure, and writing, recording for ages, and played in, the occasional band. And I would normally end up playing the bass and sing, or play the keyboards and sing. And, that's how it goes. I love playing stuff too. So, and the reason I ended up on my first album that was recorded was basically because we'd started this progressive rock band. And Anders Maude and Peter Moran from Tad Morose, they were both in it. So we were actually a four-piece. And this is the funny part about this story is, Peter was drafted to record Center of Thoughts, I think it was. He was, because their drummer, Tad Morose's drummer, left, and they needed a drummer, and Peter was there. And then he got all too busy, and we were trying to find, like in 2 months' time, they also needed a bass player. So Anders disappeared. And then we were just two guys left. And before that, all of a sudden, well, actually, it wasn't all of a sudden. So they left for that. We just dropped the band and just let it go because two guys, that's not a band, that's a duo. And we couldn't really play progressive rock like that anyway. So we stopped it. And at that point, I actually quit singing. I didn't sing a single note. Well, maybe I sang in the shower and, just for my own pleasure. But I didn't do a lot of singing anymore. I didn't sing for 2 years. And then all of a sudden, Anders called me up and said, hey, would you be interested in doing some auditions? And I said, sure. I'm not doing anything else anyway, am I? So I went over there. We had an audition, and they said, well, that sounds interesting. Would you mind coming back like in a week's time and do the same thing again next Tuesday? I think they rehearsed on Tuesdays back then. I think that was what it was. And said, yeah, sure, I can come back again. And so to me, it was like, yeah, we're doing another audition. They were just not sure. So did another audition to my mind, and they said, can you come back on Tuesday again? It's like, this went on for like 6 weeks, and then they said, you do realize you're a member of the band, right? I said, no, nobody told me. I just thought, you were really picky about who to choose, and you were like, not really sure, so you called people back to auditions all the time. So that was interesting. That was like a few months later. So that was a neat little start. That's how I got started with recordings. I mean, that was just, so I was thrown into that, and they needed to record an album really fast at that point, so I ended up using 50% of all that stuff that I'd been working on my own, just like for fun. So that album is like half me, and with some messing about from the band. So that's interesting. That's a cool start. But the funny part about this story, though, is that so we had a 4-piece, and 3 of us ended up in the same band recording, and eventually we ended up meeting the guy. He was a guitar player that was the only one that wasn't picked up by Tad Morose, and he said, "Oh, I see now. I got fired."
Oh, wow.
He's a cool dude, actually. I met him. Him and some of the mutual friends of ours from way back this year, and it was like it's awesome. He's really good with he built his own amplifiers and everything like that. He's really meticulous. He gets everything down to the detail. So really
That's
good stuff.
Cool, yeah. That's cool to hear too, because I always was kind of curious how Amended Rhyme sort of came about. So it's cool to hear that story. When you went in to record that album, did you have much nerves that you were recording your first album, or did you not really think about it? Just went and did your best takes, and that was it? How did that go?
I don't think I've thought about that for a while. It's an interesting question. I do believe I probably was a bit nervous, first few days showing up there, because I'd been in commercial studios before, just not recording any stuff that was mine, doing some backing vocals here and there, and then you don't really care, because it's not like your name is going to show up on anything, so you're going if it's not that good, they're not going to use it. That's about it. So you just go in and do it, and you don't care. But all of a sudden, you ended up going okay, my name's going to be on this, and I do hope it's going to be pretty good, and or that I can just do my best. But there were a few issues I remember, and I still think we solved them in creative ways, because one thing that I've always had a problem with, you put on a set of headphones on my head, and all of a sudden I'm going I lose the contact with so I get a little bit pitchy and take them off, and perfectly all right again. So what we did was we actually pulled an old trick. We set up a couple of studio monitors in front of the microphone. That's what I used, and did my takes, stopped, went back. I had to stand in place. We played it right back again, recorded that without me singing, and you face inverted that channel, and thus eliminating the music from my takes. It's a little bit of a tricky thing to do, but it's been done a number of times. So whenever I do run into that problem, whatever the reason it is, sometimes you're not in shape, and you go it's really a mental thing, I think. We're I can't hear myself the proper way. So,
yeah.
Let's just do it. And it's really strange, like in-ear monitors, I can't stand them. I'm going whoa, no, I need to feel my voice here. And sometimes I don't hear myself, but I feel it. And I think that's the really important part. As soon as you're singing lower notes, I can't really hear it, not on stage and all that rumble, but I feel it. And so if I feel it, I know what it's supposed to feel like. So then I get it right. If I can't feel it, I'm lost. So I guess I'm probably not the only one, but some people are just fine with just hearing themselves, through earbuds and headphones. I'm not really very happy about that. But at this point, I've done so much recording that it's not a problem anymore. But it's because I know I have to sing it slightly out of tune from my head. So I adjust. So I sing it. So I sing what I would think of my, from my own perspective as being the wrong note, and then I get it right. It's a bit of a pain in the ass, but it works.
Yeah, I can imagine what you mean. But yeah, so one curiosity I know probably a lot of the people of the forum have is how did you come about discovering the Range place, and what did you think? Because one thing we thought was interesting is you're probably only the second singer that we've talked about on the site who actually came on and posted.
Oh, I have no idea how that came about. It could be that one of the members on my forum told me about it, or sent me a link that, hey, you're featured, or something like that. Or it could be that one of those times where you go hey, let's Google myself, see what's up there. It's one of those two. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But it was fun browsing the site, actually, and seeing what notes are on there. And I wouldn't really want to go comment on anybody else, but sometimes I go look, those notes aren't really the voice. That's something else, people. Really. Some people think that you can look at an album and go yeah, that's what he sings. No, that's not what he sings. That's the overtone you're hearing. His voice is actually drowned in this bass here.
Yeah.
And you can't tell. But
we've had some troubles with that as well. It's you get sometimes you just you go so far to count every frequency you hear that you think is voice, and it's like, nope, it's probably not voice, or that's
Right.
it's probably an overtone, like you say. So
It's really hard to tell. I mean, so that's one of the reasons why I think that site is kind of interesting. It's kind of cool to see that people actually gather up all this data and just put it in there. That's interesting. And it's also fun for me because I've never bothered about it. Like, I don't care what notes I'm singing. Is it that low? Okay, cool. Is it that high? Oh, wow. Right. The only time I do care about that is, when you have to do it live and you're going like, man, I'm not in good shape today.
yeah.
Do I have to do that note? I'll pick a harmony line. Thank you very much. So
Yeah.
yeah, I know, but it's interesting, and I did notice that there were some things that was also fun. That's why I had to post, because I'm going like, there was some little screech noise in there that somebody commented on, I remember, and I said like, hey, no, that's an effect. That's an effect. That's not my voice. And if it was, there'd be something wrong with it. Now,
yeah.
One thing that's interesting, because I did notice browsing through the forum that plenty of people actually use, software to decide what note there is. You can't really trust those either, because the problem here is that the root note can get lost, and so all of a sudden you start with a harmonic, and even the best software can't really figure out what note you're singing. I can't.
Oh yeah.
For instance, and especially like with me, and I'm adding a little distortion to it. Software can't figure it out anymore. It goes like jumping up and down. It's fun. Pretty much these days, what I do is before I send any takes in for inclusion on an album, I actually just go, because normally you've been working on it, so you can't really hear what you're doing anymore. You're going like, let's check it out, because you get ear fatigue, and it's like trying to spot, if you write up your article, you try to spot the typos. You don't, because you don't really read it again, because you know what's in there, right? So that's why you leave it to somebody else to proofread it, and they will spot it for the most part, because they're reading it for the first time. This is like when you're recording an album, you're hearing it for the millionth time. You won't spot an error. So what I normally do is I go load it up in Melodyne, try to see, just check it over. Yeah, this looks okay. And when I do this, it's invariably the case. As soon as I add a little bit of distortion, or I can sing the same note. It's a straight one, like bop, just like that, and it goes jumping from octave to octave. And sometimes it just goes from the root note up to the fifth and back down, and it's the same note. And I'm like, yeah, good job. But there's nothing I have to worry about, because you can't really change it either. So you just look at it and you go like, okay, so I know that I'm close enough. Shutting it down, sending over my thoughts. It's just like the last quality check I do, and then after that, if there is something that goes, then I'm going like, whoa, that's way off, man. I have to listen to it and see, well, yeah, it probably is. So I do another take, and then I send it away. But it's a good tool to have, but you can't absolutely trust them. So that's one thing to take into account when you're doing these things, and especially if your only source is an album. Wow, that's tricky.
Yeah. Recently, I've been trying to, just in general as a community, we've been trying to eliminate some of those aspects. But it is difficult when you have something that's been going for 3-4 years and people get used to one way, and then you're talking to them about maybe we should just go with what we can be certain of, and stuff like that.
Yeah, but on the other hand, it's not. I mean, I must say it's commendable to try to clean that up and to keep it in line. It is, but I think it doesn't really matter all that much. You can go and look up a singer and see what's his range, what's the extremes, and you're thinking about it. I'm thinking for the most part, it's really for the fans. Like, yeah, my favorite singer is great. He's got a 25 octave range. Yeah, like that's impossible.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay. And another thing to take into account. I mean, you may be able to sing a really low note, and you may be able to sing a really high note. But what's in between? Can you sing the whole scale? Can you do it all the way up? I mean, there are so many places where you have to switch from one technique to the other, and if you can't do that flawlessly, you can't really say that you have a 4-octave range, because you don't, because you have a gap. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and especially in metal, because there are so many things. I mean, I sing on this album, for instance, with Project Arcadia. If I pick just any style that I do, I can't sing that with all of my range, because certain notes I can't sing. I mean, using that style, I have to switch to another mode. I have to go to head voice. I have to skip. I might even have to go to falsetto. Not that there's this is a tricky area. Falsetto, head voice. It's almost the same, and then some people say it's, very different. And I think one thing we have to remember is that we're all slightly different. So just some people singing in falsetto and singing head voice will be very similar, and for others it'll be very different because they have different mechanics, really. Because, I mean, the main mechanics are the same, but you just shape your body slightly differently. I mean, it turns into a different instrument. It's like a custom-made thing for everybody, so that's kind of cool. That's a good thing, too, because everybody would sound the same.
Yeah, otherwise. Definitely. I mean, wouldn't want that. But yeah, it's you're right. I mean, that's mainly what I look at it as. It is sort of for the fans, and it is also just it's a fun thing to do,
It is. And it is interesting to be able to look it up, because, I mean, if you're wondering, what's the highest note he ever sang? You go, the range plays. All right, pretty cool. And then if you have any doubts, you just go check it out yourself. At least you have the song and the time it appears, It'll speed up your process a lot if you want to check it out.
Yeah, exactly. You just get like confirmation, because I remember reading on like Encyclopedia Metallum and places like that, you'd see people who would be like, "Well, I like singer A, but singer B isn't as good because singer B doesn't have as much range and something," and you can be like, "Well, actually," present to them the information.
And normally when people say range in metal, it tends to be he can sing high. And then they can have just like a 1 octave range, and that's it, but it's high.
Yeah, it's more like he doesn't sing high enough or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah. But it's cool to get your take on that, because we usually aren't able to get, singers that we have talked about on the site to say something about it, so that's cool. But going back to your own music and artistry and things like that, I was wondering sort of a little bit about your songwriting process and lyric writing process. You said, like, on the first Tad Moroz album you were on, you wrote about half the album musically as well. Have you continued to do to write the music stuff as well, or has it been more vocals and lyrics aside from that, or how does that work?
Oh, well, it's a shifting thing, because I mean I always write songs, and they don't always get included, if we put it like that, and not in the shape and form that I write them, because everything changes and people are different and everybody wants something else. And I always say that if you have a song, you can play it in 50 different ways. So if I write a song and you want to change it, go ahead, let's try it. Let's see if it works. And for some of the things, like with Tad Moroz, I kept on writing songs from scratch. So there was always a few songs, like 2 or 3, that were like 100% just urban. That was like, I wrote everything from the music all the way up, lyrics and melodies. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things that I got really upset with the guys for, because, I spent all this time doing all this stuff, and then everybody shared the credits. And I'm like, can we at least put the credits on the album and not put the band? They're like, eh. And we were kind of divided as a band in that, because Daniel Olson, the guitarist with me in Trailer Murder, he also felt like, because he was the other party that contributed pretty much the remaining 50% of the stuff that we put in there. And, and so we were going like, guys, we're doing all the work at home, and you're just showing up at rehearsals, and we're, basically okaying what we're doing. And that's kind of tough. Now, of course, I am exaggerating a little bit, but it was, because, I mean, the other guys did have ideas. It's just that the brunt of the stuff came from Daniel and me. And with Trailer Murder, for instance, the songs, the music, the initial spark to the songs were mostly his. And not because I didn't contribute anything, but because he was writing a lot, and he also likes to play his guitar parts the way he writes them. And so if I give him a song, it'll just sit there, or he'll play it exactly like I write it. And that's not what I want. So then I just go like, all right, let's use your songs. So that's what we're doing. So then I just write all the vocal parts, and that's enough. That's a bit of a workload in and of itself. So I'm quite happy with that distribution of work. So there is that. As far as, how I write my lyrics, it all differs. Sometimes I have the concept for the lyrics first, and other times I just have a few lines that sparks my imagination, and I go from that. And so the song just kind of builds from there. And it all differs. You probably, I mean, if you do pay attention to the lyrics, you'll find that there are different styles of lyrics in there, even though everything is written by me. It's different. It goes from one perspective, it takes on another one, and it comes. Some of them are like very much built from fragments, and others are more a story. And there's a lot of difference in there. And an interesting thing about that, though, is with this Project Arcadia album, was that I was given free rein in the vocal department, but basically all the concepts for the songs were already in place. because I didn't write a single instrumental backdrop to anything. Everything was just there. I just rewrote. He even had vocal melodies and lyrics, and but I was free to change those, and I did. I kept as much as I felt was needed to maintain the concept he had, and the parts that were really good, and then many of the parts were good, and just needed to be a little bit, like I said, I always want an artist to personalize what they're doing. So if you send me a melody, I'll take it. That's your melody, and that's how you would sing it. How would I sing it? Yes, I'll sing it like this. This is me. This is how. But it's the same melody essentially. It's just with a little bit of modulation here and there. Sometimes you omit a phrase, leave a gap because you need to breathe. Things like a guitar that a guitar player doesn't really think about because they're going like, you can play and keep going forever, and you're going I gotta breathe, give me a break, exactly. Give me a gap here. I can do something else, and so with that's kind of interesting. It was fun to do. It was a lot faster too because I didn't have to worry about what do I write about this time because the concept was already there. So I could just either change the words, keep them the way they were. I made them. I think that if you actually read the lyrics, you're going to see that they are slightly different from what I've done before. But it's definitely got that urban flavor to it.
Yeah.
so they'll be obtuse enough that you know that it's me.
That's cool, definitely.
I don't like it very much when you're just going like, yeah, this is what this song is about, and you hear it just spelled out right. This is a song about going down to the fridge and picking out the beverage you want. That's not my type of lyrics. It'll be, you won't even know that it's the fridge unless you know me.
Yeah, that's one thing I like about your lyrics in general too, is that they do have a certain vagueness to them, which is it's different than what you normally expect in metal, especially like in power metal, or things like that. And so that's always fun to kind of read through the lyrics while listening and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I always say you have to leave some room for the imagination. If you don't, what is there? I mean, and quite frankly, if you think about it like this, what makes a book that much better? It's because you fill in so much information from yourself. You feed yourself into the book when you're reading it. That's why it's better than the movie, because the movie would just go, this is it. This is how it is. While in your head, you're filling in lots of details that they don't even say a word about. If they'd never described the hair color of the protagonist, you'll know the hair color because you got that in your head. You fill it in, and that's what I try to do with my lyrics too. I try to leave gaps, openings. Let's make sure that they don't really know what it's about, and they can make up their own. And if you ask me what a song is about, I can tell you, but I'll also ask you, what do you think it's about? I think that's equally interesting. I mean, really. And I always think, like in school where you had to like analyze poems, and you go like, there's no way I can know what went on in this poet's mind. I have no idea. I mean, I can know all about his life and everything else, like down to the finest detail. I would still not know exactly what he was thinking about when he wrote the poem. And I wouldn't know that even if he told me, because that could be bullshit.
Yeah.
So I mean, I always said that, when you read a poem, what you hear, what you see, what you think, that's what it is to you, and that's what's important. And it can be a fun exercise to try to figure out what the author meant, but that's all it is.
Yeah, definitely. And so, kind of going from there, a similar question, but when you're, do you have how do I put this? Do you have the vocal melody, and do you try to put lyrics to that, so maybe you'll sing it like without words first, or do you have the lyrics in mind before you have the melody?
Well, I've had both, so it's a bit of both. I often do the melodies first, and I have the melodies and the thought about what I think this song should communicate, and then I try to find the words that will work with that. So that's one way to do it. It takes a lot of repetition actually to do it like that, because you have to listen to it over and over again. You put down a few melody lines, and you just play it back to yourself, and you're thinking about meditating over the concept. Turn it off, come back the day after, leave it for a week, you come back again, and then it falls into place. That's really how it goes for the most part. But I've done it the other way around too, because you can write words, and you know the metric, and you know how it works, and you know what you want, and then you start, and then you write the rest of the stuff to it. it happens. I've done both. But normally I do think I start with a melody because I always said this. This is what I always say. If you're more interested in the lyrics, read poetry.
Definitely.
If the music is the important bit, granted, good lyrics will enhance it for you. But for as long as they're good enough, they won't break it. So I do take a lot of time writing lyrics anyway. Because, I mean, pretty much anything I do. If you ask my wife, she'll tell you that I do everything, too much. I give it, I think my motto should be anything worth doing is worth overdoing. That's what I do.
Yeah.
It goes for everything. I can't do anything halfway. If I start doing something, I'll do it to death.
Yeah, well, that's probably a good motto to have, actually, in a certain way,
Except when it comes to financial situations, because what happens is you spend too much time, so you don't do enough things that you would make more money from. So you do one thing in a year instead of 55.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good way of putting it. Like, I wouldn't have thought of that initially, but yeah. So I was thinking. What are some albums that you've done in the past, like that you feel are maybe like one or two that feel like they're the most complete for you? Because there's definitely a range of different styles that you've done, from the Tabmaro stuff to like Bloodbound, Tabula Rasa was very different, and then Trail of Murder and stuff like that. So what are some of your personal favorites of your own work?
Oh. Well, like any musician will tell you, it's my later work, what I've done most recently. But that's hardly surprising, given that you take into account that it's the last thing you did, so it's probably the closest to your current mindset.
Definitely.
And I mean, if I go, I look back at what I did on Undead, there are some ideas there that were brilliant. I would make something else with those ideas today. But there's no denying that there were good ideas in there. And some parts were probably some parts are things that I probably couldn't do just as, and get the same result today, because I'm just not that person anymore. And, there's the odd line here that you go like, yeah, that's gold. That's gold. That line, you can't replace it. That's how it's supposed to be that way. If I do that line today, it's going to be close, but it's not going to have that little last bit of shine and sparkle to it that, you get goosebumps from. That stuff is now for me like reserved to what I do today. That's really close to my heart. I think really that's what I'm trying to do most of the time now, and I'm trying to make sure that I can emote properly. I can get the feel, what I feel inside, to get that across even within the constraints that metal is. I try to get that across, and you can do a lot in there. The problem here is picking a favorite. I mean, I'm going to end up saying, Project Arcadia, A Time of Changes. And I say that because I love my vocal performance on it. I really do.
Yeah.
I think it's my best work, vocal-wise. It's not going to appeal to everyone. Some people are going to go like, nah, you did a lot better, with Tabula Rasa. You did a lot better on Shades of Art. Yeah, Undead, it's your best work. And I'm going like, I don't know. I mean, that's... It's not, what my favorites are. That they're my last two albums. It's just because I'm actually a better singer these days. So.
Yeah, no, I can hear it too. Your style seems to have definitely developed, just continuously since Amended Rhyme. Because I actually listened to that album before we did this interview, and I was thinking, yeah, it's really good, and the vocals are really good, but it does have a bit more of that. I don't know if I'd say youthful quality to it, but but like there's a bit less. It sounds slightly less developed than your most recent singing. I can hear that.
Well, what it is,
even though it's still pretty crazy, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, what I would say, this is how I would like to describe it. I think it's a good way to say, to tell the what's the difference between that first one and these later works. It's control. Control is what it is. I mean, you're young. You can do pretty much whatever you want. You don't have the experience, and you're not really sure if this is the way to do it. But you're doing it anyway because you can, because you're young, you're strong, you're just going for it. I can sing this note. All right, I'll do it. I can do this. Yeah, I'll do it. And then it all comes down to the fact that you haven't done it 200,000 times yet. So that's the big difference, At this point, yeah, I can sing that note. I know how to do it. And I'll do it easily. I'll just do it cleverly, too, and be able to do it 25 more times if you wanted to. You know what I'm saying? And that's the big difference, I think. On top of that, we have, I could perhaps go back and change my style back to what I did like on Modus Vivendi, for instance, and that'll sound pretty good. It'll be pretty close to what I did back then. It wouldn't be a very smart move because I do a better job today. but
Yeah.
but if I do need that kind of tone for a song, I'll do it, and I have that in my toolbox. That's really great, and I think that's the big difference here. You see, if you look at Amended Rhyme, you go to Undead, you go to Matters of the Dark. Matters of the Dark, by the way, is a disaster from a vocal point of view. I developed, laryngitis first day in the studio. Was just we even had to send medical certificates back into the label to tell them hey, we have to delay it. We can't deliver. I wasn't allowed to speak for 14 days, so I was forced to go back in and do it before I was really fully recovered. And the reason this happened was, of course, because I tried telling everybody, hey, we haven't done a lot of shows for a while. I can't really sing for 8 hours a day. It doesn't really work out. I can't do this whole album in 2 days. And so you give me 2 hours, when you're tracking the guitars, call me in for 2 hours at the end of it, and I'll add a song every day. Of course, that didn't happen because the guitar player went, my vacation is coming up. I got to do this right now. So what happens then is, of course, and this is typical. I guess most singers are struggling with this because the guitar player goes, my guitar will sound fine every day. And as a singer, you're going I don't sound fine every day. I mean, I can't just change my strings. That doesn't work. So you kill your strings as a singer, you're dead for a while. So that's what everybody has to struggle with. And so, I mean, I had, instead of just accommodating the singer, it turned into the standard thing that suck it up, just do it. And instead of actually getting the album done on time, where the guitar player's having to show up 1 or 2 days extra because they couldn't play the last 2 hours every day, then the album was delayed by a month. So that's what happens. And I mean, while there are some parts on it that are okay, and some songs could perhaps be considered fairly well sung, but I could have done so much better. That's just my take on it. And but it is what it is. I mean, that's fun too. Every time I hear it now, I remember those days and I remember what it was like. So that's cool. It's a good little memory to have.
Yeah, I guess so. How much attention do you pay to reviews and stuff like that? Because I remember you mentioned that maybe some people will be like, oh well, I prefer this album or this album. Do you read them just sort of for giggles or whatever, or because I imagine for most people it's probably not of too much concern, but how do you approach that, if at all?
I'll pretty much read every review I can get my hands on. It's fun read. I mean, it's good to see what people think about you and what you're doing. I mean, I'm interested. I mean, I'm interested in hearing if you don't like what I do too. And it's in some ways those reviews are the more they're fun to read because you're going yeah, that shows how much you know. Or you're going yeah, poor bastard, you picked up this album. Obviously, you're into death. You shouldn't have picked that album up.
Yeah, so maybe that wasn't the best choice.
No, but I mean, it's fun. I like reading reviews. I mean, I don't collect a scrapbook or anything. I just read stuff, and it's interesting. There's nothing wrong with boosting my ego that's already big as the universe.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed too with most reviews is even if they aren't too super fond of the music on some of the albums, they pretty much always have good things to say about your singing. I've noticed. They're always the music, I'm not so crazy about, but man, Urban Breed, he can really sing, something like that.
Well,
so that must be kind of fun.
Well, it's fun. I've come to kind of expect that, and so that's why I go chasing down reviews just to boost my ego. Now I'm quite happy to see that happen. And that's part of what I said. That's why it's the best position in a band to be the singer, because people will pay attention. It doesn't matter if your rhythm guitar is absolutely astoundingly well played. People won't really notice. And you do, of course, it depends on the music style too. But the style I've normally been drawn into making and playing tends to be the case where the rhythm guitar may be, the driving force of the song, but people don't really pay attention. They'll hear the melody, the vocals, the tone of the vocals, and the style of it, and that's kind of if they like it, they love it, and that's about it. I mean, they'll even love it when I have a vocal breakdown and I leave it in there, and they think, yeah, that was cool. Well, actually, that's the thing too. That's why I leave it in there, because even I thought it was cool. You make a mistake and you go, wow, that sounded cool. Can I replicate that? And you try, yeah, I can. Let's leave it. That's cool. So that's one of those
Yeah.
things, happy accidents, and you learn how to reproduce it, and you go, yeah, that's cool. Another piece, another thing to stick in your toolbox. But when it comes to things like that, I do think that vocals do get a lot of attention, and I don't mind it, but I sometimes feel like, man, it's a shame that they don't really pick up on the fact that the music I sing on that sounds really good, it has the foundation that allows me to shine. And that's the thing. And, because if you have a guitar player that wants to take over, it'll detract from the vocals. Instead, I've been given the luxury of having lots of room for my vocals. I can do pretty much whatever I want, and nobody gets in the way of what I'm doing. So that's an important aspect to remember. So I can't just walk around, I make or break this band. In a way, a singer can, but at the same time, you find an equally good singer or a singer with a more interesting voice, and they'll be fine anyway. So you got to remember that too.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. The music, it does come first as a whole, so you gotta have a solid band to start with, before the vocals can really make it shine, I guess.
Yeah.
But if I can ask like a slightly technical question vocally.
Go ahead.
Okay. One thing that I know I struggle with my singing, and I know probably a lot of other people who are aspiring into a kind of maybe a bit of a similar style that you do, with the a lot of the higher singing and the sort of, as you said, Bruce Dickinson kind of almost operatic tendencies. But how do you manage that distortion, that rasp to the singing? Because that's something that like I've attempted, and it usually either ends up hurting or it ends up not quite sounding the way I wanted to. How did you kind of find that, and how's it developed over the years?
Oh, well, that's one of the things that I should perhaps have mentioned earlier when you asked me about the start and everything. And because I remember, like, on Amended Rhyme, there's a little bit of it, but I had a very different way of producing that band than I have these days, because I learned that I was put it like this, I was really loud. I've gotten, quieter and quieter. You won't really notice on the albums. It's just the technique. So I sound loud, but I'm not quite as loud. I'm still very loud. I mean, a metal singer will normally be kind of loud, but you don't want to stick me in, at a tea party somewhere and have me sing, just, accompanied by a nylon string guitar, because you won't hear the guitar. But I've gotten quieter, and this is part of the reason, is that you figure out where to place that, let's put it, grit, distortion. Let's just use that term for now. And you figure out where you place it, where you create it. And, I mean, you can obviously do it by just, pushing so hard that your vocal folds will just explode and burst. That's probably what most people do, and that's where I started too. And I figured out that I can do it in a different way. I would probably I don't think I can put this into words, really. I haven't really, well, for one, I'm Swedish, so I'm not really sure that I have all the proper names for the vocal folds, the epiglottis and the vallecula and everything else like that, So I probably put in the wrong words, but one thing you shouldn't do is don't put the distortion on your vocal folds if you can avoid it. You can place it somewhere else. You can really just start. I could show you how I do it. If you're in the same room as I am, and I'd show you, and you'd have to try to replicate it, and I'll tell you what you're doing wrong. That's probably the only way I can do it. And it is a little tricky. But one thing that you should know is that it does not hurt. If it hurts, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. It could hurt if you're extremely tired, but that's because you're sliding into doing it wrong because you can't hold everything back. You've normally got I use a style that calls for a lot of compression. There's a lot of compression going on, and if you can't keep that compression in, you can manage to do some bad stuff. That's not good. So, and the compression is also what will kill me if I have a large number of tougher songs in a row. It'll kill me, wear me out, because I have to maintain such a high level of compression for so long that it unless I get like a 2-minute break somewhere, I'm gonna go like on my knees for the next song, and I won't lose my voice. It's just sheer fatigue. So, give me a few seconds, I'm coming back and I can get back in and doing it again. But it's very important to remember that if you do have a high compression kind of style, try to plan your set list, in advance, so that you don't put all the songs that you have the most pressure, the highest pressure songs in a row. That's bad.
Yeah. Does that distortion kind of change at all when you go from like more of a medium tone up to the higher tones? Because I know with some people they have to kind of switch the sound slightly so that they don't hurt themselves by trying to pull up too much or whatever.
Well, that's a good advice to begin with. I mean, because you should basically just sing in the register that you're in the style. If you need chest voice to begin with, don't push that too high. I mean, as a metal singer, you will be forced to go high in pretty much every respect. You start with your chest voice, you're gonna have to go high with your chest voice because that's the sound you're looking for. And and when you're shifting into head voice, you have to go high in head voice. And you have to you might actually, sometimes if you think about it, you're going like, let's not push my chest voice here. Let's start with my head voice and try to get that as low as I can first to maintain the constant timbre or whatever you're doing. But it's a little tricky. I always go from song to song with these things and whatever the song needs for the sounds. And, one phrase might just switch to head voice like bang in the middle of it because you need to do it. Or you can go back to chest voice and push it high because that's what it calls for. But as usual, it's really important to try to place your singing and use a technique that's appropriate for the notes you're singing. So if it is low and you can use full voice, a full-bodied chest voice, go for it. But be aware, though, that what you need to practice is singing in between these, where you feel like my chest voice is it's a little hard work here. It's starting to be wear a little thin, and then you're going like, my head voice can't really sound like all full-bodied and great. That's the area where you need to practice and be careful. I mean, you start, if you can't do it at a lower volume, don't do it. Just try to get your strength in both registers first, because if you have to push hard and be loud in order to be able to sing a note, you can do so, that's fine. But if you're planning on getting better, you need to figure out a way how to sing that note and not be quite so loud. And that's the hard part.
Yeah, definitely is. I can say from trying to do that a lot, it does definitely start to become an issue with the volume, because it seems as though it almost seems like you kind of have to use more volume to get up to that sound. Yeah. But then you feel a bit sore afterwards or something, or at least I sometimes do. But
well, I'm not surprised. Yeah. I'll say that I don't hurt myself, but I'll get a bit hoarse sometimes. You're not supposed to be hoarse if you're singing right, but I will get hoarse after a show. But it's not really bad. It's basically because I lose. Your vocal folds need to always be moist, and so that's really what it is with me. They get dry toward the end. No matter how much water I drink, and I try to keep everything well lubricated, it doesn't always work. So that can happen, but it's fine if you know what it is. If you're doing something wrong, so you're hoarse, and it won't just go away within an hour or two, because you get your liquids back, you're hydrated again. If it doesn't work like that, well, then you need to figure out a different way to do it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's really good to hear some of that, because I always feel like a lot of times the singers that a lot of my favorite singers usually aren't ever interviewed about their singing, so it's cool to hear some more about that. Or specific aspects of their singing, I guess.
Yeah, it's probably because most people don't really care about how it's done. That's a singer thing. If you've ever tried to sing, that's when you want to know it. If you don't try to sing and just think that some certain sounds sound cool, then you don't care about how exactly they do it. You're going like, you do it. That's cool, man.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also good to hear some of that stuff coming from a metal singer as well, because I feel like a lot of times the online instructors are a little more catered towards, pop or R&B or hard rock singing or stuff like that, which is a little different, different styles sometimes. So they might have advice that would work for one style that wouldn't work for another one.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I definitely agree that there is a great big hole in in that part, especially if you're just looking for YouTube clips with tips on how to sing this and how to sing that, you're not going to find much about it in metal. And I was thinking, just like I think it was last year, that maybe I should start, giving classes. But then I'm going like, I don't know. I mean, I'd have to, for anyone to actually be able to use anything I know, they have to have a voice that's kind of similar to mine. Because I mean, I couldn't take a female, student and go like, hey, try this. Yeah, doesn't really work. That wouldn't work, not one bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course,
yeah,
as you could tell, that was kind of quiet though. If I couldn't have done that quietly back in '96. That would have been loud. That's one of those things. Of course, it doesn't sound quite so cool either. You have to find a balance.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So are you usually pretty good at being able to kind of like maintain your voice on tour, and like, do you do anything specific habit-wise or whatever?
Well, I guess I'm pretty good at maintaining my voice on tour after the third day, because here's what happens. I don't go on tour, like every day all year long. So whenever I do go on tour, I'm like, pumped up, and this is so much fun. And I'm going like, I'm going to show these, you know what I'm talking about, people what I can do. So first day, going like, you feel like, oh yeah, it feels good. Second day, you're getting warmed up, and you're feeling like you're on top of the world, and you can do whatever you want. You can, and really you can. I can sing pretty much any note I want. I want that high note here. I'm gonna hold it out for twice as long, and you're going like. On the third day, you wake up and you're going, I wore myself out. I gotta sing tonight, man. And that's when you start taking care of yourself. I mean, I know this. I've been doing this for a number of years. It hardly ever fails. It happens every time. So if you want to catch me on tour, catch me the first or the second night. Now, actually, I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna do it right the next time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely interesting hearing about that as well, because if you're traveling and stuff, I feel like that probably also would affect the vocal cords in a certain way, and then plus singing a bunch. So
yeah, I'm not sure the traveling in and of itself does much, other than the fact that you're like staying in a little enclosed box that like has tons of different new stuff from all over the world that you haven't encountered before, and you're like locked in with it. It's like a billion bacteria, different kinds that you haven't encountered for a year, and all, assaulting you at once. And then if you keep the bus, like if the bus is warm, then it's even worse. Then you have a great big breeding ground. So there is that, of course. But other than that, I don't think, the travel part as much. Because not for me, because I'm really very good with, if I have a bunk that I can lie down, I can sleep. I don't care. So I'll sleep all through the night, even if the bus is moving. If you can't do that, because sleep is really important. I mean, some people can operate without a lot of sleep. If I don't sleep well, I don't sing well.
Yeah.
That's
I can imagine that would again.
And another thing, something I should actually do something about, and this is really important. If you have really good speech habits, you're golden. I don't. I'm terrible. As soon as I start speaking, I don't speak the proper way. I don't. I should really relax and just let my voice drop, and I don't do that. I don't know why. So if I talk a lot, that can cause a problem. And, you're on tour. You talk a lot. You meet a lot of interesting people. You have lots of things going on. You meet all the fans. You meet everybody. Everybody wants to talk to you, and they want you to give interviews, and they want this, and they want that, and you have to make your own wishes known, and you have to talk to people all the time. So that's one of those things that I'm, like, trying to avoid a little bit. And I remember the first few tours I did, that was one of the mistakes I made. So I don't party. So I'm good that way. I don't wake up the day after with a headache, and I've never been hungover in my life, so that's not a problem. Wow. However, I do like talking to people, so
yeah.
So that first tour I did, man, I talked so much that I was in trouble. That's just one thing. So think about that. If you want to take care of your vocal folds and the whole apparatus, think about your speech habits. I should do myself. I should actually go see somebody to like put me on like some kind of an exercise thing so I can get it right. I know what to do. It's just that I don't do it. It's I fall back to my old habits, and that's how I do it. So
yeah, that I've heard about like speech coaches and things like that, and I initially was like, that's kind of strange, but then I started then I just got into a situation where I would be talking to more people, and I started going to more shows, and just like as myself, I noticed, whoa, the
Yeah.
voice is feeling really bad the next day or something. So maybe, it might be a good idea for a lot of people to look into speech coaches more if they're going to be singers as a career or something like
Yeah.
that.
I mean, many of these things that, a speech coach will tell you will also be taught to you from a vocal coach because they are universal. And so I know a lot of these things. It's just that for some reason I can't really implement them when I'm talking because I feel like other things are more important at the time. So I guess I also feel a little silly because to me it feels like, all right, I'm going to sort of like half sing here. No, not for me.
Yeah. So a little bit of a different question. What kind of music or what stuff are you listening to now? What's like on your own, on your free time? Do you listen to much music, and what kind of stuff would that be?
Oh, I would say that I don't listen to a lot of music. I don't because I work with it too much. But
Yeah.
I still, I mean, it's not that I don't want to hear music, and it's not that I don't like it. I do. But normally when I put on an album, it's going to be progressive rock. That's where it is. That's what I like to listen to the most. It's
Cool.
that's where I end up. And I mean, if I do put on something other than that, it tends to be more hard rock too. So hard rock and progressive rock, and that's really where other than Iron Maiden, that's where I started. I mean, that's what I fell in love with about music. So it's like Deep Purple, Rainbow, and later on the Cult, especially the Sonic Temple album. I still love that album to death. But that's like more arena rock, I like I like the freedom of arena rock. The music I play, that there's not enough room for that. Because let's say that you want to make your guitar sound really big and you want to add stuff to it, you can't because there's another guitar and there's the drums and there's everybody else playing at the same time, and there's not enough room for the guitar to just be open, loose, and improvise. It has to be like perfectly on all the time. So since I do that a lot, I guess that's also why I don't listen to much of that because I'm exposed to it constantly when I work. So I prefer to hear hard rock where there is one guitar player. I mean, sure, they can have two guitar players too, but there's more room for being just open and loose and just relaxed about what they're doing and improvise. And you can hear that like spur of the moment stuff happening all the time instead of going like, yeah, they had that lick planned from like 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I love about Deep Purple, and specifically just how every time they play a show, it's different.
Yeah, I mean and the dynamics. My goodness, there's dynamics. It's sorely missing in music today, and you get a lot of dynamics if you listen to progressive rock or old hard rock, and that's really where it is. I miss that a lot, and I'm not just talking about the production where they compress everything to death. It's also in the playing. There's a lot of dynamics missing. Everybody's trying to hit their strings as hard as possible all the way through, and that's about it.
Yeah. So with the progressive rock stuff, you're big into all the classic kind of bands, I imagine, like from the early '70s and all that?
Oh yeah, obviously. I mean that's a given. Early Genesis, great.
Oh yeah.
And however, with Yes though, I will say I like the later stuff more. I'm basically just a Yes fan from maybe Drama and up. That's the later stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I like. And I'm pretty much the same with Rush too. It's like I like the later stuff. I like one or two songs off of Signals, and then from there on it's fine. So,
yeah, I think Grace Under Pressure is really underrated too. So
that's
cool to hear.
Grace Under Pressure has got awesome songs on it. Unfortunately, the production is a bit thin.
That's true.
It makes it feel a little artificial. So those songs in a live setting, beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool to hear. Like initially, I actually wouldn't have, just from listening to your music, I wouldn't have guessed that you'd be a progressive rock fan as well. But that's cool to hear, Although there are definitely some progressive, elements that show up in some of the stuff. But that's definitely quite interesting. Is there any chance we'd ever hear Urban Breed singing on in a more of a hard rock scenario or a progressive rock scenario?
Well, I guess there is a bit of a hard rock scenario on the Project Arcadia stuff, but it's mainly metal there too, so it always gets pulled back into metal territory. You just get a glimpse here and there. The next one that we'll be working on is gonna I say probably because we're not sure. We're not really aiming. We didn't say let's make a hard rock album, but we did say. I was talking to Plumman the other day. That's the guitar player, and we said, yeah, because we discovered that that's really where we both prefer hard rock over metal when we're listening. So said, yeah, this could be dangerous. That's what the next album's going to be like. It's going to be a hard rock album. I assume that what it's going to be is like you're going to get a little bit more of the hard rock flavor. You're going to get a bit more dynamics, but we're still going to have the metal songs in there because, I mean, after all, I do love that part too. It's just like, when you talk to me, you can go like, man, Urban Breed hates metal. No, I don't. It's just that I get to do it all the time. And so the part about metal that I love is the part that I do. It's my vocals. That's what I focus on. I put all my love into my vocals, and I put so much of effort into it and so much time that I can't really, make myself try to enjoy anything else, even though I do. If I hear it, if one of the guys during rehearsal just starts on a riff that I recognize from a metal song, we're all just jumping in there having lots of fun, and we love it. That's fun. So, I mean, that's the way it is. It's just that if I do listen, I prefer to listen to progressive rock and hard rock, and it's probably just because that's where I started, and it's also what I don't do so much. So I get a full dose of metal just from work.
Yeah, I can imagine so. I'm trying to think if I have any other questions planned for this, actually.
You don't have to have anything planned. I hardly ever plan anything unless I absolutely have to.
Yeah, that's true. I had a few ideas in mind beforehand. And I was like, let's just go with it.
Yeah.
But it's been really fun getting to talk to you about all this stuff, though. Some of the more specifics, and also, as I said, the prog rock stuff is cool too because I'm really into that as well. So.
Oh, cool. What are your favorites?
Oh, I do really love early Genesis as well, especially like Foxtrot and Selling England by the Pound, and actually I do really like Van der Graaf Generator as well.
Yeah.
Pawn Hearts and that kind of stuff.
I know.
Yeah. Let's see what else. Camel, I do like me some Camel and things like that.
Well, lots of good classic stuff there.
Yeah. It's definitely kind of I think from listening to progressive metal, I was like, oh, everyone's influenced by these guys. I should check them out,
Yeah. I think it's quite interesting though. I mean, because I love progressive rock. I'm not crazy about progressive metal. I think the one reason I'm not is because they lose the dynamics. That's what it is. If you think about it, that's the main difference. They don't go super. Yeah. They don't go super quiet. They don't go super small. It's always, let's be big. Let's make this big and play these cool things. Yes, that's cool. So, but it doesn't grab me. I mean, this is not saying that there isn't good progressive metal out there. There is. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's just not my cup of tea. So.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, and especially, listening back to some of the classics like Supper's Ready. As you said, it's almost like a classical composition where it gets so quiet, and there's these very subtle, vibe, vocal lines and the way the instruments are interacting, and then it'll come at you really loud after it. And that is definitely something that the majority of progressive metal doesn't have, even though I'm also a fan of it, but I can definitely see what you mean.
Yeah. And don't feel ashamed, for being a fan of that.
Oh, no, yeah.
No, that actually brings to mind, you asked me a little bit about my vocal approach. I think the biggest change that's happened with my vocals since I started is that I am not afraid of sounding fragile anymore. Starting out, you want to sound big and strong and mighty, and I don't care if the song calls for a fragile sound, something that's almost breaking up. That's what I do, and that's an important thing, I think. And and if you want to know where I picked that part up from, that's an English band called Marillion. I love Marillion. H is absolutely fabulous when it comes to stuff like that. Fish wasn't so much. Well, actually, it was pretty good too, but I do prefer H over Fish. But that's just probably mostly because of the material changed, I think, and the fact that H has got better intonation. Fish is a little pitchy.
Yeah, Fish is kind of a strange voice. But yeah, Season's End is actually probably my favorite of theirs. So, and also Brave and stuff like that. So.
Yeah. And, by the way, did you catch them when they were in the U.S.?
No, unfortunately I didn't, but I definitely wanted to.
Yes, no, I went up to Chicago to check them out both nights, actually, both the Friday and the Saturday. Smaller show, but awesome, absolutely fantastic.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Did they play some of the like earlier Hogarth era stuff and everything?
They played pretty much from all the albums. I mean, not that they could, but they played two nights and they played two different sets. I think they had like one or two songs repeat throughout those two nights only. So that was good. So they played almost two entirely separate sets.
Oh, that's always
So
cool.
you got to hear stuff from pretty much everything.
Yeah.
I think they even played some Fish stuff. So yeah.
That's always a cool bonus. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you on tour? Because unfortunately I haven't gotten a chance to see any of your bands on tour. But how do you approach the set list, generally speaking?
Oh, I fight with the drummer. That's how I approach it. Quite frankly, that's how it goes. I'm going like, you can't place that song after that song. Then I'll sound like crap. And he goes, yeah, but this is an opening song, and that's a really great follow-up. And I'm like, yes, you're right about that, but I can't sing those songs those two songs back to back. And so I'll fight with him. That's basically how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like fun.
That's not much fun, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah. So you usually don't vary the set too much from night to night, like the way
well,
some other bands do.
If it's just down to me, I'll play two different sets. Of course, the last thing I did now was with Trailer Murder. We have one album out. We're playing pretty much the whole album. So that's that's not much to change out. Let's put it like this though. I do the cover circuit down in Texas a little bit once in a while. We're doing Dio shows, just Ronnie James Dio stuff, and then we're breaking out stuff from all over the place all the time. We're changing it up a lot. We're not very active because the guys are actually being active doing other things. They're filling in for other players in Hellstar, for instance, and they're doing their own band too called The Scourge. If you like thrash, old school thrash, you should check them out. They put out an EP. I painted the cover for them, so you should check it out.
Oh, cool! Yeah, I do like me some old school thrash stuff.
Yeah, you should check it out. They're called The Scourge, and they're from Houston.
Cool, yeah. Or does it kind of have, since they're filling in with Hellstar, does it sort of have a bit of that vibe of modern Hellstar stuff? But is it more like classic old school stuff?
I would say that it's mostly classical old school stuff. At least this EP that they put out, the next album that they're writing on right now, I'm not really sure. They could be anything. So good people, and they're really growing as players, and they're great. I think they're good fun to see live too. So
yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So what are, since you do the Dio stuff, what are some of your favorite Dio songs to sing in a live scenario? Because he's obviously such a classic singer for metal kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah. What do I love singing Jesus, Mary, and the Holy Ghost from Strange Highways. Love that one. And,
yeah.
And there's plenty. There's so much to take. I mean, so that's the thing about Dio. Most of it is a pleasure to sing. It's made for a singer, you know.
Yeah.
And I love doing don't do it very often. I love doing Rainbow Eyes from Long Live Rock and Roll, just because it's so different. I get to sing very quietly, and that's cool. And like Wishing Well, Black Sabbath.
Yeah, that's an underrated one.
Oh yeah. People forget about it. This is one of the things that we do when we're doing the Dio thing, is we're bringing up lots of the deeper cuts that people don't. We don't just do the hits. Not that Dio had many hits, but we don't just do the main numbers. The Last in Line is always fun to do, and oddly enough, I mean, I don't really love Holy Diver so much, but oddly enough, it's a great number to sing. I mean, it's a great song. It's just that I've heard it to death, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah, I feel that way about much of that album. Even though it is good, it's become such a classic that after a while you kind of don't need to listen to it anymore. You know?
Yeah, that's a great album. Okay, let's pick something else.
Exactly.
So yeah, Lady of the Lake, I love that one too, and it's the one song I don't like singing actually is the title track of that album, Long Live Rock and Roll, because there's never a break. It's exhausting. I'm getting like, can somebody else do these ad libs here?
Yeah, you have to keep doing the chorus and then do the ad libs with it, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah. Next song, please. No. Yeah.
Can we cut this song short? Can we just do the first verse? It's a great song, but yeah, it's tough to do. So when it comes to that, I prefer to do the songs that aren't quite so intense, that has a lot more room for just. It's also very, repetitive. It goes like, long live rock and roll. Yeah, we're done. All right. So.
Yeah, you basically know what the rest of the choruses are going to sound like after the first one. But yeah, it is a cool song.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to do stuff from Dehumanizer too, because that album has got, it suffers from production, but the songs are pretty good. We love to do I, for instance. And while I don't like to listen to TV Crimes much, it's a fun song to do live. So we do lots of stuff that I don't, particularly, go crazy about listening to. But, suddenly, some songs just work in a live setting. You go like, yeah, live is fun. Listen to the album and go, it's okay. and then you start playing it live, you're like, wow, this is great fun. Let's do it again.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's interesting you had mentioned that you were doing a cover sort of a thing on the side like that, because generally speaking, off the top of my head, I can't actually think of any covers you've done with any of your bands. So is that something you usually try to avoid doing as a band? Because
actually, we were forced to. It was suggested with a mighty hint from the record label Century Media back when, that we should do some covers, and we did. The one thing I didn't like about that is, the time we had in the studio was about 4 hours, and we had no rehearsal, and we went in and we did it. So the covers that you can find with Tab Morose, for instance, they're not all that, great, because it's more like, let's set up the drum kit and get going and play it. So, well, it's kind of raw in that respect. But it's more like, I'm not very fond of them, because it's done like more of what a hobby band would do, rather than what I would prefer to do and actually release. So, but it's fun. It was fun. We also did, like, way back, was it Power of the Night, Sabotage, and we did Devastation, not my finest moment, and Rainbow Demon, Uriah Heep. And if I'd pick any song by Uriah Heep, it'd be July Morning. I love that song. What else did we do? We did an Accept song. That's a disaster. You can't cover Udo.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you happen to be Mark Tornillo. That's amazing, actually. He does a great job with singing those songs. Really amazing.
That was pretty surprising.
Yes, I always thought that, nobody can really replace Udo. Not that I think he's the greatest singer, but he's very unique. And somehow those songs seem to, demand that there's that kind of a voice there. And Mark pulls it off wonderfully. I mean, it's slightly different, but perfect. So that's really cool. And what else? Oh, yeah, that was Losing More Than You Ever Had, I think we recorded. And we did an ABBA song, too. Of course, we're Swedish.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that now.
Yeah, all these songs were just like recorded in an evening, not really any proper rehearsals or anything. And when I say recorded in an evening, I mean that. We carried, the drum kit, set it all up, and did it all in an evening, and we left. That's how it went. And normally that was 2 songs per night.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that's definitely interesting to hear as well. Do you generally find, like, with covers that you try to maybe, like, I know some people say they get annoyed with covers that just replicate the original, or then other people feel like, if you change it too much, you're kind of maybe destroying it a little bit for some people. So
you mean like Tracy G used to play We Rock like that all the time?
Yeah, exactly.
I was going like, dude, it's fine. You can do that once or twice in the song just for kicks, because that's cool. But if there's the riff to that song, everybody knows the song. They know how the riff is supposed to go. Come on, give us a song the way it was. You may find it boring, but you don't have to change it every time.
Yeah, exactly.
Having said that, I must say that Tracy G, I love his guitar playing on the albums he's on. I absolutely adore it. I think that's wonderful. So that's cool. So
yeah,
that's like my one gripe about that era.
Yeah,
every time I saw them, he changed the riff to We Rock, and I'm like, really?
Yeah.
But no, as far as your main question there is, I don't try to change the songs, like change them, but I'm also not trying to sound like Dio. I just sing it like I do it. What I try to do, though, is stay true to the flair of the song, the flavor of the song. So that's what I do all the time. And I mean, really, and especially with somebody like Ronnie James Dio, I don't really sound like him. You can say that I have a similar style, but that's superficial. So
yeah.
So that's it. But yeah, I try to stay true to stay true to the song, but just put myself in there. That's what I do, and that's really what I think anyone should do. I mean, of course, there are people that are really good, copycats, and that's kind of an impressive skill in and of itself. So that's fun to see too, especially if you see somebody, doing a cover set and they're changing from artist to artist and they actually sound like the singer the whole time. That's pretty impressive. I find that's cool. That's cool if you do it that way. But
Yeah.
I mean, if I do that, I would feel silly. But I probably also couldn't do it, so that's fine. So maybe my attitude here is just being lazy. I don't know.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know, but yeah, yeah, that's cool to hear as well. It's kind of it is a point of contention for some people, how to approach covers and how faithful to be or not faithful to be and stuff like that.
I think it's easily sorted out. You go, do you love the song? Yes, do it. Then it's fine. If you don't do it. So.
Yeah, that's true. And actually, it's a particular. I know that particularly because I have a friend who's actually a really good musician, but sometimes I know he's done like covers. Maybe he'll do a cover of a song that he actually doesn't like so much, so he wants to like rewrite it, kind of.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, yeah, you don't have to do that. Just write a different song,
Yeah.
And I know there are other bands that have done that as well, of course. I don't know if they dislike the song, but then it is becomes such a different song that they might as well just have made a different song completely.
I do suspect that oftentimes the case is that the record labels or somebody else suggests that they do a song, and they think they think that they need to put their own unique spin to it to such a degree that people will know that they put a unique spin to it, and then they overdid it. And I mean, sure, to each his own. Yeah, whatever. It's not a big deal. If you're putting out regular albums and you record a cover once in a while, you're free to do whatever you want. If you just want to play the root note the whole song, go for it.
Yeah. So do you still? I take it you probably do. You still regularly play like piano or keyboard, different instruments like that, like you mentioned, or bass and stuff like that?
I wouldn't say that it's regularly, but often enough. Yeah, I do that. I don't do it regularly because when I travel, I don't bring an instrument, and sometimes I'm going like crazy because I'm going over to a friend's place and I'm like, you don't have any instruments, man. I don't know what to do with myself.
Yeah, wow.
Seriously, I do that. There's something missing here. I tell them, it's like, well, you don't have a guitar on your wall that I can pick up. Where's that keyboard I need to play? You don't even have a recorder, man. What's wrong with you? So yeah, I love playing music. I mean, that's just the way it is. I find an instrument, I pick it up, and I fiddle with it.
Yeah. So has it ever been thought to you that maybe you would do like an album where maybe you play some guitar, play some bass or keyboards on the album?
I was actually, planning on recording a solo album for a while, and then I was going to do most of the stuff on my own, but then I realized that if I write everything myself, the album is going to be pretty much one-dimensional. So I gave up on that idea, and since then I'm actually, portioning out those songs that I wrote for that into different projects. So one band gets this song, another band gets this one. I try to see what fits where. So that solo album is not ever going to happen, I don't think, unless something strange happens, and I just suddenly go like, I can do it after all.
Yeah, well, no, that's understandable because I'm sort of in a, I think, similar situation just for myself with music, with writing. I kind of feel like there needs to be some kind of a band to sort of work with, as you said. Otherwise, it does become just sort of one-dimensional.
Yeah, it does. I mean, of course, you can write all the songs yourself and then just have other people come in and play them for as long as they put themselves in there. That one-dimensionalness. I love inventing stupid new words. So
exactly.
it's going to go away because then you have different feels, different time. Because I normally say that we all have like our own inherent rhythms that we fall back on. That's like natural to us. And it's kind of interesting to know, to see, because if I put a guitar part to Daniel, for instance, he'll go, this is awkward to play, man. And I'm going like, no, this is really easy. And then he gives me one of his parts. I'm going like, this is backwards for me. It's often in the rhythm and how the phrases are put together. And And that makes it interesting when you have different people. Because all of a sudden my phrase will change a little bit. It'll transform itself into something else. And you see, oh, okay, yeah, you can play it that way instead. Cool, that works. And all of a sudden you have a different beast in your hands. And it can be better. Sometimes it's not better, but it's different. And for as long as it's not worse, it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's well put. I don't know what else I can say about it, but yeah. I guess I should probably ask this sort of because since we've started doing this interview series on the Range Place, I know people are probably curious about this. But since you have seen your page, I guess we could call it,
Yeah.
would you you say, okay, yeah, that's where they put the lowest note, that's where they put the highest note? Would you say that's actually accurate for you, or would you say, no, that's not quite how low I can go, or how high I can go, or stuff like that?
Well, I think as far as what's been recorded, I think it's pretty accurate. I wouldn't say that it's the full extent of what I can do. And on the other hand, you have to remember that most singers, they have like an extended range that sound like shit.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, I did an experiment someday, and we normally keep our guitars tuned in D. I could sing the whole guitar. It was a 24 fret thing, sing every note on there. I will tell you that, not all notes sounded great.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, okay, that wasn't fantastic, but I could sing it.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool, though. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if you ask me what my range is, I mean, I couldn't tell you. I don't really care. I can sing a wide variety of notes in a bunch of different ways, and that's about all there is to it. I don't care. I mean, if there are songs that are within my range that I still cannot sing really well the way they are supposed to be sung because I don't have that tone. And that's really what it comes down to. Or I don't think I have, or I haven't discovered how to sing it yet. So there are things, some songs, they just require a certain something that's a little intangible almost. It is intangible. You're going, I don't know what it is. You could probably figure it out if you took the time and if I had to sing it. Normally when there's a song like that, I'm going like, it's a popular song somewhere that I've never, or very unpopular song when it comes to my taste that I haven't really, that's like from outside of my experiences. So it's like in a different field entirely. I've never sung that style. I'm like, I'm not sure I could do this well. And you give it a go and just out of curiosity and you go like, nope, I could sing the notes, but it didn't sound right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's very true as well. And then one thing I did also want to ask you: do you feel like for an upcoming singer? Well, I'll ask it generally. What advice would you give to someone who is an upcoming singer or an upcoming musician in the business? And I guess I'll just leave it at that. I was going to also mention something about the not focusing on, say, range or focusing on specific things like technical things singing, but just in general, what would your advice be to an upcoming singer or musician in the business?
Oh, well, you mean someone that's basically just started out or has been singing like for a year or two, I guess?
Yeah, someone who's kind of like maybe has a little bit of experience, but isn't.
We're talking about maybe getting ready to record the first album.
Yeah, maybe in that kind of a territory.
Okay, well, I'd like to spread something out that's a word of wisdom from Ronnie James Dio. You have to find a way to sing that you can sing forever.
Yeah, that's very powerful.
And you think about it, he really did. I mean, he didn't do the worst parts ever. He didn't do super high for the most part. He didn't go super low. Didn't do very, very much of anything extreme. So he did follow his own advice, and he really did, sing throughout his entire career. And I can safely say that I didn't see him, live at any one time where he couldn't pull it off. There was the odd note that he had to switch and do a harmony line just because he needed to rest a little bit. But what was that, like 2 or 3 words, and then he's back up again. So yeah, that man was astoundingly good, and on top of that, he was also wise, because that's a really good thing. Find a way that you can sing and sing like that forever. That's a great way to do it. Granted, you may want to push yourself once in a while, and that's another thing to remember. To like when you're writing, the fact that you can sing that super high note, don't always include it because people are going to expect it, and if you have a bad day, might not be the best idea. And on top of that, if you can't sing that high and you put all of the song up there, if you can do it, relax and never ever have a problem with it. But if you do get tired, think about it. Think twice. Is there another way to do it? It's just like good advice because from a live perspective, you have to replicate it at one point or another. If you can only do it in the studio, you're going to be in trouble live. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, that definitely seems to be the case just from, seeing so many live bands where they, not going to name any names, but where somebody has been singing really high on most of the songs on their studio album, and then they're like, oh, damn it, I have to actually sing all these notes live,
Yeah. I mean, there's
probably an easy trap to get into.
Yeah, and the sad truth is that it's not necessarily the highest notes that are the toughest one to sing either. You can end up with something like, in a recent, fairly decent position, and you're still ending up in trouble because you're stuck in that little narrow field, and you get fatigued just from that. It's like the difference between dynamic and static muscle work. Dynamic muscle work is a lot easier than static. So if you just sing in like a very monotone stretch for a long part, that can wear you out. Watch out for that too. Now, of course, most of us will just go like, that's boring, so we won't do it. But once in a while, a song calls for it, and there you go. You can get into trouble. So basically, I would say this is related to that, find a way to sing that you can sing forever. It is like, find a way where you can sing and feel relaxed. Even though you're trying to sound mean as hell, try to find a way where you can do it and feel relaxed while you're doing it. It's not easy, but once you find that, that's the earlier you find that spot, the better off you're going to be.
Well, that's really good advice. Yeah, it's good to hear that because so many people, and myself included, maybe forget that at times, and don't think long term. Just like, I just want to sound like this now,
Yeah.
And then that's what you go with.
and sometimes you have to do it because you realize that yes, I can get there with practice and exercise. Yes, I can do it. And the problem is I have to record it now, and I can record it now. But the one thing you have to be prepared for then is as soon as you do that, you're going to have to get back home and practice and exercise so that you can do it every time. So it's like you have to think about it. Mm-hmm. Be smart about the singing, really. That's what it is.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so I think I'm pretty much out of questions. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the Urban Breed fans out there? Anything particular they should be looking forward to? Oh, I guess we kind of already covered most of that.
Yeah, I think we did. And you're looking forward to the Project Arcadia album, I hope. I am looking forward to it. I'm actually looking forward to seeing the whole package. Again, I painted the thing. Woohoo!
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
So I'm looking forward to seeing the physical product. I mean, I've heard the album for a bit now, and I love it. And by the way, other than that, I do hope that you take your time to come see me on tour whenever you have a chance. I guess most of you guys are in the U.S., so that's not going to be so often. I normally fly to Europe for tours, unless you want to go down to Houston and watch some Dio songs. And when I say Dio songs, I don't just mean the band Dio. It's everything that Ronnie James Dio did, basically. Except we don't really do any songs from the 50s or 60s.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd love to come out and see one of your bands live. The only thing is, like, where I'm at in the inland Northwest, usually there's not bands don't usually come here in general, actually, especially like metal bands. It's kind of more of a except for, I guess, like modern kind of more radio-ish
yeah.
bands.
I assume though that if you're thinking about metal, most of what's going on in Europe anyway, if they're going to come to play the U.S., it's going to be the East Coast.
Yeah, definitely.
One reason is, of course, that it's a lot cheaper. So it's a lot more expensive to get over to the West Coast.
Yeah, I would imagine. So I'll probably just hitch a trip if I have to. If you come around to the U.S. again sometime soon with one of the bands, Trail of Murder, or whatever it may be. So
yeah, I'm not really sure which band is going to hit the U.S. first. So,
oh yeah,
we'll see. But
well, that's cool.
Yeah, that's about it, I think.
Yeah, no, it's been great talking.
Yeah, I've had a good time talking to you too, so it's all right. And if you need another interview, you know where I am. Or if you need some clarification, you know where to find me.
Yeah, well, that's cool. It's definitely always great, to get to talk to somebody whose music I'm a fan of and is, willing to chat with me about it.
Cool. No problem. I did have some time to spend today, so.
Yeah.
So
All right.
in
So,
between doing laundry and other important metal stuff.
yeah, exactly. Metal for life, man. No, but right, yeah. So it's been cool chatting, and yeah, maybe we'll chat again sometime if maybe after the next album comes out and there's more to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure there's going to be much more to talk about, but if you do have any, questions, you know where I am.
Yeah.
All right. Take care. And,
right. You too.
And it was good talking to you.
Yeah. Same.
Have lots of fun tonight.
All right. I will.
Yeah, good.
Bye-bye.
Bye.